They built the system to keep you obedient, to make you run endlessly on a wheel disguised as progress. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't chance. It was design. Every law, every rule, every lesson, engineered not to free you, but to contain you. They call it civilization. But Machiavelli would call it control. The structure is elegant, a masterpiece of invisible chains. It lets you believe you're moving forward while ensuring you never escape the orbit of servitude. You wake, you grind, you sleep, you repeat. Your time fuels their empire. Your attention feeds their machine, and your fear cements their throne. From the very beginning, you were given a script. Go to school, get good grades, obey, smile when told. Stay polite, be grateful. And one day, if you're lucky, they say you'll retire. But retire into what? A body that's tired? A mind that's spent? A soul that never truly lived? They gave you a map where every road leads to the same destination, obedience wrapped in the illusion of safety. They call it a career, a life plan, a stable future. But it's the same gilded cage Machiavelli warned about, one that rewards good behavior with comfort and punishes rebellion with uncertainty. Ask yourself, was this path built for freedom or for compliance? You wait before the sun, crawl through traffic, sit under fluorescent lights, and call that survival. You trade hours of your life for wages that barely buy back your peace. You call it normal because everyone else does too. You scroll for distraction, laugh at screens, chase small pleasures to numb the ache. And every minute you give away, the system smiles. Because this is exactly how it was built, to keep you so preoccupied with surviving that you never stop to ask why. Your energy is its fuel. Your time is its currency. Your attention is its prize. The truth is brutal. The system doesn't need you to be rich. It needs you to be reliable. Poverty isn't just empty pockets. It's a programmed mind, one that obeys limits it never tested, one that confuses safety for peace. The system doesn't want thinkers. It wants repeaters. It doesn't need rebels. It needs believers. It conditions you to fear risk, to distrust your own instinct, to worship stability. You're taught that power belongs to the few, that the rest must settle for survival. And in believing that lie, you make it true. Machiavelli saw through this centuries ago. He studied rulers the way a surgeon studies anatomy, dissecting the muscles of control, the bones of authority, the pulse of fear that keeps people still. He understood that systems don't evolve for fairness. They evolve for advantage. Advantage for the rulers, order for the masses. And he whispered a truth most couldn't bear to hear. The one who builds the system never builds it for you. Most reject that truth. It's easier to say no one controls me.
Easier to believe you're free than to admit you've been tamed.
But look closer, at the fear of losing your job, the debt hanging around your neck, the constant worry that keeps you silent when you should speak. That's not freedom. That's dependence wearing a smile. You soothe yourself with small comforts. Food, gossip, validation, distraction, anything to forget that you're still caged. The system doesn't need guards. It has comfort. It doesn't need chains. It has convenience. And yet, here's the dark genius of it. Most people don't rebel, not because they love the system, but because they fear losing the little they have. They defend their limitations as if they were treasures. They call their cage security. They obey the rules that oppress them because rebellion feels like risk, and risk feels like death. But Machiavelli would remind you, the greatest danger isn't rebellion, it's blind obedience. Because the system isn't broken, it's functioning exactly as intended. It was never built for you to win, it was built for you to serve. But Machiavelli also left a map, a way to escape without setting off alarms. He knew that destruction is crude, but subversion is art. If something is designed, he'd say, it can be redesigned. If rules were written, they can be rewritten. If the game is rigged, it can be outplayed. You don't break the system by shouting at it. You break it by understanding it. You study how it moves, where it feeds, what it fears. You learn its rhythm, and then you dance against the beat. The system thrives on fear and dependence. But the moment you stop fearing, it starts losing control. Fear was never your enemy. It was your compass. It shows you where the power lies, and where you've refused to step. When you stop fearing, the walls turn to doors. Rules turn to tools. Limitations turn to leverage. Fear itself becomes fuel. And clarity, that quiet, deadly clarity, becomes your power. Because once you see the system clearly, you can no longer be deceived by it. You stop chasing its rewards. You stop worshipping its idols. You stop mistaking obedience for virtue. If you stay asleep, the cost is devastating. You'll burn the best years of your life building someone else's dream. You'll pay debts that were never yours. You'll die with your potential still locked inside you. That's the real tragedy. Not poverty, but waste. Not failure, but blindness. So what's the alternative? You don't wait for freedom. You take it. You don't ask for permission. You act not with noise, but with precision. If school taught you to obey, teach yourself to outthink. If work trains you for compliance, train yourself for leverage. If society sells you illusions, feed your mind on truth. That's how you escape. Silently, strategically, while others stay trapped in comfort. Most people are sheep. They're fed. They're warm. But they feel the fence. And deep down, they know they're trapped. Machiavelli didn't write for them. He wrote for the wolf, the one who studies the shepherd, learns the timing, and walks out of the pen without blood, without sound, without permission. Freedom isn't granted. It's seized. It begins when you start questioning everything. Every rule, every expectation, every phrase that starts with, "This is how it's always been." Ask yourself, who does this serve? When the world pressures you to conform, ask, what happens if I do the opposite? When fear rises, ask, whose interest does this fear protect? That's how a slave becomes a strategist. That's how chains begin to crack. And when you start thinking this way, the world reacts. People notice. Some mock you. Some call you arrogant. Some try to pull you back into their comfort zone. But deep down, they're afraid. Afraid of what your freedom reveals about their own cowardice. Because if one person escapes, it proves the fence was never real. It proves that the cage was always in the mind, and that terrifies the system. Nothing threatens the rulers more than the example of someone who walks away. Not in protest, not in rage, but in silence. Because silence is ungovernable. Look at how the elite move. They don't play by the rules. They write them. They don't run through the maze. They design it. But even in their architecture, there are cracks. Patterns that can be reversed if you know how to read them. Fear becomes a weapon. Distraction becomes a disguise. Division becomes a shield. That's the Machiavellian art. Not to destroy the game, but to master it so completely that it bends around you. Because true escape isn't about running away. It's about reclaiming control, waking when you choose, working for your own vision, building what no one can seize from you. Not money that can vanish, but power that endures. That's what the system fears most. Not rebellion, but independence. Because when you stop needing approval, the entire structure begins to crumble. When you no longer crave validation, propaganda loses its grip. And when you no longer trade your soul for comfort, the rulers lose their leverage. When the pressure builds, when the world tells you to shrink, to stay quiet, to play safe, remember, you don't need to burn the walls down. You only need to find the crack. Every empire has one. Every system, no matter how grand, hides its flaw. Machiavelli already gave you the map. Power isn't in shouting, it's in knowing. Knowing when to vanish. When to bend rules until they break in your favor. When to walk away while others argue about the trap. That's the move the system never sees coming. That's the escape it can't defend against. And it begins with one realization. The system doesn't just want your labor. It wants your loyalty. It doesn't just want your money. It wants your mind. That's why, in all your years of schooling, no one ever taught you how power really works. They filled your mind with dates, formulas, and trivia. Everything except the one subject that could set you free. The mechanics of control. Because once you understand control, you stop being controllable. And that is dangerous. The obedient mind is predictable. It doubts itself. It waits for permission. It seeks comfort in approval. But a strategic mind, sharpened by silence, tempered by struggle, that mind cannot be ruled. So they teach you to memorize, to repeat, to conform. They make you proud of obedience, ashamed of defiance. And by the time you reach adulthood, you're a perfectly shaped pawn in a game you never agreed to play. But Machiavelli never wrote for pawns. He wrote for players. The quiet few who can't be tamed, who sense that there's something beyond the script. Because once you glimpse the real game, you can never unsee it. Once you taste even a fragment of real power, you can't go back to pretending. You look around and see people chained not by iron, but by belief. They wear debt like jewelry. They call exhaustion ambition. They mistake consumption for identity. Look at the modern slave, dressed in brands, trapped in loans, drowning in subscriptions. They don't call them chains anymore. They call them plants. You're not free if you owe everyone. Debt keeps you obedient. It keeps you quiet. It keeps your eyes down when your soul is screaming to look up. You don't need iron cuffs when numbers will do. The system doesn't need to chase you when it can make you chase it. And most people accept this deal. They'd rather stay trapped in the known pain than risk the unknown freedom. That's fear, the oldest control mechanism there is. But Machiavelli understood fear differently. He saw it as a mirror, not a wall. Fear shows you exactly where your limits are, and the moment you walk past them, the system loses one more slave. The moment you stop fearing loss, you gain leverage. The moment you stop fearing judgment, you gain peace. The moment you stop fearing failure, you gain speed. And suddenly, the game changes. But the irony, Machiavelli reminds us, is that most people never truly seek power. They seek comfort dressed as ambition. They say they want to rule, but what they really crave is to be liked by those they wish to rule. This is the most fatal mistake of all, for the man who hungers for approval has already placed the chains around his own neck. Machiavelli warned, "It is far safer to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Fear preserves authority where love breeds entitlement. Love invites betrayal. Fear commands distance. Yet modern minds recoil from this truth because they have been trained to believe that goodness alone will protect them. But goodness is a weapon only in the hands of those who understand when to sheath it and when to strike. Machiavelli's philosophy was never about cruelty for its own sake. It was about survival, dominance, and the recognition that virtue unguarded is virtue wasted. A kind man among wolves does not inspire loyalty. He invites the feast. The strong are not defined by their lack of empathy, but by their control of it. They feel, yet they do not let feelings dictate their fate. You must learn this duality, to be human without becoming vulnerable, to be compassionate without becoming weak. For in the eyes of the world, every act of mercy must be balanced by the shadow of strength. Think of the rulers who lasted, the ones history remembers not for their smiles but for their resolve. Julius Caesar, Augustus, Catherine, Napoleon, all students, knowingly or not, of Machiavelli's laws. They understood that stability demands sacrifice, that compassion without structure collapses into chaos. They saw the pattern. The moment you let sentiment rule strategy, you lose both the kingdom and the soul that built it. Power, in its purest form, requires both the mind of a poet and the heart of a predator. But this lesson is not just for emperors or kings. It is for you, the ordinary soul trapped in the illusion of fairness. You may not wear a crown, but every day you fight unseen battles for influence, respect, and control. You compete not with swords, but with perception. Machiavelli would tell you, the world is ruled not by truth, but by the belief of truth. Appear strong, and even your weakness will serve you. Appear desperate, and even your strength will be dismissed. People do not follow those who are right. They follow those who seem certain. So what does that mean for the modern mind? It means you must master your mask. Your presence is your weapon, your silence, your shield. The one who speaks less is assumed to know more. The one who does not seek attention becomes its center. Machiavelli wrote that appearances are the foundation of authority. Perception is not the enemy of reality. It is reality's reflection in the minds of others. In other words, power exists not in what is, but in what others believe is. And yet, in our world, this truth terrifies people. They cling to honesty as if truth alone will elevate them, unaware that raw truth often burns the hands that hold it. Machiavelli would laugh softly and say, "Men are simple creatures. They are moved by appearances more than by realities. You can spend a lifetime building virtue, but one rumor, one whisper against your name, can erase it all." The wise do not try to control the truth. They control the narrative. Every age has its battlefield. Once it was swords and shields. Today it is perception, narrative, image. The digital empire you live in is no different from the courts of Renaissance Florence. Gossip, manipulation, alliances, betrayal. The game has not changed. Only the players have. And Machiavelli would have thrived here. He would have ruled this world of filters and illusions, not through deceit, but through mastery of appearance. He would have reminded you that morality means little when perception is king. The world does not reward the honest. It rewards the effective, but there is a deeper cut hidden beneath his cynicism, a kind of grim mercy. For Machiavelli understood that pretending to be good is sometimes the only way to survive among those who are not. To live in a corrupt world and remain pure is to die unseen. But to wear the mask, to play the game, to twist virtue until it becomes strategy, that is to endure. You must not despise the mask. You must learn to command it. The face you show the world is not hypocrisy, it is armor. And yet, every armor must have a will behind it. Machiavelli's greatest warning was not about deception, but about softness, the quiet decay that comes when a person surrenders their will to the tides of chance. He said, "Fortune is a woman, and if you wish to keep her under, you must beat and maul her." Crude to modern ears, yes, but his meaning was not violence, it was dominance over chaos. Fortune favors the bold, the disciplined, the ruthless in pursuit. Those who wait for destiny are devoured by those who seize it. So ask yourself, do you live by chance or by design? Do you wait for opportunity or do you manufacture it? Machiavelli would tell you that passivity is the death of greatness. Every empire begins with a man who decides that waiting is no longer an option. The weak blame circumstances. The strong bend circumstances to their will. The question is never, when will I be ready? The question is, how much longer will I pretend not to be? Even the purest intentions crumble when faced with time and decay. But will, cold, deliberate will, survives. It carves its own reality. It endures betrayal, hardship, even isolation, because it does not depend on approval. And here lies Machiavelli's most painful truth. If you wish to command others, you must first command yourself. Discipline is not control of action, it is control of reaction. It is silence when insulted, calm when attacked, focus when others panic. The ruler of men begins as the ruler of his own mind. There is a strange kind of beauty in this ruthlessness. It is the beauty of clarity, of seeing the world as it is, not as it should be. Once you strip away the illusions, you begin to see how fragile power truly is. It survives only through perception and performance. But understanding that gives you the edge, because once you know that the crowd worships appearances, you no longer chase validation, you create it. Machiavelli never preached cruelty, he preached realism. He believed that moral purity without strategy was vanity. To do good in a corrupt world, you must first learn to speak the language of corruption. To lead the wicked, you must understand their fears. Only then can you turn darkness into an instrument of light. For the greatest rulers are not those who avoid shadows, but those who use them to shape the light. So the next time you face betrayal, rejection, or the chaos of ambition, remember, power is not found in reaction, but in restraint. The moment you respond emotionally, you have given your enemy your map. Machiavelli's world was one of deception, but also of discipline. He would whisper, "He who conquers himself is more powerful than he who conquers cities. Your emotions are the gates of your kingdom. Guard them." And when you are tempted to prove yourself to others, resist. Let them underestimate you. Let them misjudge your silence as weakness, your patience as fear. Because every moment you hold back is a moment they reveal themselves. The wise do not rush to expose truth. They wait until truth becomes their weapon. The world loves drama. The powerful prefer mystery. The Machiavellian path is not for everyone. It demands solitude, calculation, and the acceptance that not all victories will be visible. But if you can stomach its weight, you will find freedom unlike any other. The freedom of being untouchable. When your strength no longer depends on praise, when your peace no longer depends on fairness, when your focus no longer depends on luck, you have already won. Machiavelli's words were never meant to glorify darkness. They were meant to reveal the machinery behind it. The sooner you understand that power is neither good nor evil, only a force, the sooner you can wield it without shame. Remember, every saint who ever changed the world had a hint of a sinner in him.
Every ruler who left a legacy had a touch of ruthlessness.
Virtue without power is a poem. Power without virtue is a wound. But together, they become destiny. So walk forward with your mask polished, your will sharpened, your silence disciplined. Let others chase love. You chase leverage. Let them seek fairness. You seek advantage. Because in a world of noise, the one who understands control, of mind, image, and moment, is already a ruler. Machiavelli would not tell you to be kind or cruel. He would tell you to be necessary. The one who cannot be replaced is the one who cannot be destroyed. That is how empires survive. That is how legacies are born. And if you have understood this lesson, truly understood it, then you no longer need to ask how to gain power. You only need to ask one thing, how to keep it. Because the next lesson Machiavelli would whisper to you is this: power is easy to rise to, but impossible to rest upon. It demands motion. It demands control. And it always demands more, so stay. Because the truth that comes next won't just challenge your morals, it will dismantle them. And when it does, you will finally see the world not as it was told to you, but as Machiavelli always saw it: cold, calculated, and waiting for the brave to claim it.